Welcome to Off With Their Headlines with Amanda Matta and myself, Meredith Constant. We are back with another episode for the week, and let's just say I think we were kind of Meghan Markled. And I'm not saying that in a negative way, but we were Markled.
We got Markled hard.
Yeah.
And I loved every second of it. Just getting that out of the way now.
I know, because we had a plan, and we still have a plan for this week's episode. We are going to get into what did you want to title this before we were Markled?
Yes, it was going to be an evergreen episode called My Big Fat Ex-Greek Monarchy. And we are still going to hit that topic, but I needed to let you know the title because it will not be the title when you are listening to this.
It was funny because you texted me the title idea. I said, "Why can't we use it?" And you were like, I don't know. Meghan Markle just did a thing, wrote in sand.
Right. Yeah, twice, more than once, by the way.
Once. Oh, heaven forbid.
It's appalling. Yeah, so we are doing a little bit of a mix and match episode today. We will discuss, of course, the latest and greatest news out of Montecito. And yeah, also we have a story on the Greek quote-unquote royal family and what they are up to. It's a topic I have wanted to deep dive for ages, and we're finally getting into it today. I think this will continue to be a developing story in 2025 as well. So I'm really happy we are opening the year with this episode. It's also one of the first ones since we started this podcast and launched it. So thank you so much for all of the feedback and reviews and the just enthusiasm. It really means a lot to us.
It's absolutely incredible. And all the reviews, especially over on Apple, it helps other people discover us, which is amazing. We also have a Patreon. The link is in the show notes because we're going to have a bonus episode with even more thoughts on the media coverage of Meghan Markle's latest venture. But it's also weird because we got on this morning and we're recording this on Monday, January 6th. And it was just, it's just a weird
It's a weird
day.
vibe.
I don't know about you, Amanda, but on January 6th, which if you're an international listener and you just don't know, this is when there was a terrorist attack on our capital that could have been really, really, really bad if it hadn't been for the heroic actions of one Capitol police officer diverting rioters. I mean, really scary stuff. So actually on January 6th, I was standing in line for 4 hours waiting to get my COVID shot because Texas got them. And because I have Hashimoto's, I was able to get it a little earlier. And so we got there, so early, and we had to stand outside for 4 hours. And it was actually cold in Texas that day. And that was around the time too, if you remember, we were waiting to see how Georgia was going to go for the Senate.
Yes.
And we had found out that Warnock had won, and we were like, oh my gosh, a new day has come. This is great. What a day. And then my mom and I got our shots.
What a day.
We went home, and I forget what version of what shot I got. There's one that I don't do as well with, but I'm still very team, get vaccinated. It's good. It's good not to
it's a good
die
thing.
of measles and stuff like that. But anyway, so I decided to lie down because I'm a little headachy. I lie down for a couple hours. I wake up, I look on my phone, and I see a picture of is that the Capitol on fire? And I literally for a second thought, whoa, maybe this shot does have something in it. I thought I was hallucinating because it seemed unreal that I would be seeing. It looked like a scene from Handmaid's Tale. And then you started to learn more of what was happening. And I just said, oh my gosh, this is it. This is it for Donald Trump. But no, boy, howdy,
No.
It's not. No, it's not. It certainly isn't. Where were you? What were you doing on January 6th?
So I was at my workplace at the time where I was developing STEM curriculum, lackluster job in the grand scheme of things. But I remember going down to my director's office because I had gotten a push notification that it was happening. And she's watching on her laptop. And we live in Harrisburg, which is the capital of Pennsylvania. And we had already had a bunch of demonstrations at our state capitol from similar folks to the January 6th rioters. And so we were very close to the Capitol and just I remember standing there in her office wondering, do we go home? Do we stay? What do we do? What do we do? And it was a weird way to be present for the January 6th riot because we had to make decisions about, okay, do we get out of here? Do we stay here and shelter in place? Like, what is going on? And I remember we all decided to leave. It was like before a lot of the action, quote unquote, kicked off inside the Capitol. We just like all went home. And then my partner at the time was a reporter. He's like a state news journalist. And the same thing happened to him. He had to make decisions. He said, do I go to the Capitol? Do I get my shotgun? And I said, please don't get your shotgun. Please don't do that. Do I get my baseball bat? Maybe not. I don't know if that's the right response. But it was just such a bizarre day and almost a rite of passage for us, like as young adults coming out of COVID, not really having our shit together. What do we do? You know, it was the first time I'd been faced with a decision like that. And it's truly bizarre in the aftermath of January 6th, moving on and having half the country think it wasn't a big deal has been truly horrifying to witness.
It's upsetting.
Yeah.
It really is upsetting. I think it's important to remember this day, though, and to bring it up and to remind people just how horrific it was. This was an attack on our democracy, on our free and fair election process, which we pride ourselves on, the transfer of power that is peaceful. That is a peaceful transfer of power. And the fact that that didn't happen and it was deadly, but also the fact that we still don't fully understand how they knew where to go, where to get in. Like, there are some things about it that feel truly, that this was a bigger planned operation. And I think it's also important to remember that while a lot of people were like, oh, it's poorer working class people that showed up, it wasn't. I lived in Texas at the time, and the number of people who chartered planes and ended up getting in trouble for being there, these were people with money. There was money and thought and preparation put into this, and that is terrifying.
Our state representative, Scott Perry, chartered, I think, a bus, if I'm remembering correctly, to DC on January 6th. And he won re-election in the last, countrywide election. So it's just, it put in perspective for me, especially the years leading on from January 6th. It put into perspective how divided we are as a country. And I don't know. I don't know where we go from here, but the fact that we are sitting here talking about the royals on January 6th, we just thought we had to kind of take a moment and acknowledge that and grapple with the fact that it's not the biggest story. Right now, I haven't heard much reporting on, it's the 4th anniversary. Like, nothing.
Really, no.
No.
And I also think because we are a podcast called Off With Their Headlines and we look at media and media coverage, this all connects and this is all part of it. Media coverage of all kinds. And that's why when we look at burying the leads and stuff, even if it's about a Netflix show, there are larger things that you can pick out of it and apply to other topics that interest you. And because there is so much that interests us, but we should talk about this Netflix show. Let's, I haven't even looked at the articles yet. I'm going in just totally blind. Which one do you want to start with?
Okay, so I did pull
or are
two.
we doing one? Or
we are doing one.
Okay.
I did, yes. So I polled on Instagram at Matter of Fact because I had 2 articles that I was like, this could go either way for this section. Really, it could have gone a myriad of different ways because the Daily Mail, as of my last count last evening, the Daily Mail has published 30 plus stories on Meghan since the first when she launched her Instagram. So, I mean, and counting. And it's everything from, okay, the trailer dropped, great, to her dog, Guy, makes a rare appearance. It's just wild. They tallied up her clothing. They tallied up her jewelry. There was a tally of her shoes. So we did end up choosing a Daily Mail article for our Bearing the Lead segment today. Are you ready?
Oh, boy.
It is from Melody Fletcher for Mail Online, which is not a name I'm familiar with. So that's good. I think that's a good place to start. Meghan Markle could have helped in a meaningful way in the firm, but her new Netflix series is an exercise in celebrity at its most superficial, royal expert claims. So
we got
that's
a lot of
crazy.
We got a lot of problems right off the bat. I mean, we have a lot of the tips and tricks that we love, including a royal expert.
Exactly what I was going to say. Yes. So a headline being made out of one person's commentary on the moment is where we are at. But I don't think that takes away from the fact that, 800 people were commenting on this story the last time I opened it. It's a moment in the culture. And that is what the Daily Mail is banking on here, which is why they've published upwards of 30 stories, probably 35 or 40 this morning. They know that this is a moneymaker. They know that this is an opportunity to make up some of that revenue from the slow news year that we had pertaining to the royals in 2024. So just keep that in mind as I read you some of this. The Duchess of Sussex's new Netflix series is an exercise in celebrity at its most superficial, a royal expert has claimed after the Duchess released the first trailer for With Love, Meghan. Meghan was so excited to share a glimpse of the long-awaited lifestyle program with her Instagram followers ahead of its launch on January 15th. But for royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams, the clip was Disney-fied and all about Meghan. He noted how, had the mother of two stayed as a senior member of the royal family, she, quote, could have helped in a meaningful way.
I'm spiraling. I'm spiraling. Oh,
It's talk about, it's not even burying the lead. It's throwing multiple leads at you because the next paragraph, viewers on X appeared to agree with the expert's thoughts, with some taking to the social media platform to call the former actress entitled for cooking meals that nobody can afford right now. I can't afford tomatoes and peaches, so nobody should eat tomatoes and peaches. You know,
she wasn't making beef Wellington. I mean,
vol-au-vent.
it wasn't a Wagyu steak. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not, times aren't tough, but also that's a very interesting line because the big thing before the US election was how everything, the price of eggs, blah, blah, blah. And
Right.
then it's actually Donald Trump's not going to bring down the cost of that and tariffs are going to make things worse. But also we had one of the biggest Black Friday shopping in years, you know what I mean? So the whole like, oh, no one can afford things. Well, I don't know how that tracks, but it is interesting that that is being used as what is
talking point.
unrelatable to this show. Also entitled from a monarchist.
Right. That was another top tweet. Ironically, not, of course, included in this article. Another top tweet was just basically saying that Meghan Markle's so out of touch and entitled, and just a picture of the royal family at the coronation.
With the gold carriage.
Right.
Come on. You just can't be throwing you can't be throwing those rocks around Buckingham Palace.
So let's read more of Mr. Fitzwilliams' commentary here, such that it is. When watching the trailer for her series on cookery, I noted that Meghan says she's always liked taking something that was pretty ordinary and elevating it. She could have been referring to herself. If she had stayed as a senior working royal, it could have all been so very different. Whatever its faults, and there is no doubt she was deeply unhappy as a royal, as Harry was, being a senior working member of the British royal family does give you an opportunity to do good for others, which is unique. Meghan and Harry could have carved out a special role, especially in the Commonwealth, which is what Queen Elizabeth intended. It certainly would have meant sacrifice, but they could have helped others in a meaningful way by supporting charitable causes. Instead, they caused a royal rift, and Harry, reduced to a cameo role in this trailer, has lost so much which he valued. There's more, but I will pause.
I visually, for anyone watching, where you get the videos on Patreon or YouTube a week later, I just went through so many emotions because you have to completely discount everything. You have to pretend that the last 5 to 6 years did not happen for any of that to work. First of all, recall, because this is my Roman Empire article. If you have followed me for a while, you know I have an issue with an article from the Telegraph from November of 2018 in which the writing, it was about how Meghan's cookbook mosque is home to terrorists was essentially what the title was, and it was all about how the work she was doing to help displaced Muslim women that lost family and friends in their homes in a fire that was totally preventable 2 miles from Kensington Palace in a poorer area of town with mostly immigrants, how her work with them to create a cookbook and raise money for their hub community kitchen to bring people together through food and shared culture, how that was aiding and abetting terrorists because, Muslims, I have dissected this. I have broken it down. I have talked to the author.
But there was a poll, Meredith. Wasn't there a poll?
It is.
How can you argue with polling?
It is my Roman Empire. It drives me absolutely insane, but also the idea was that she did too much too quickly. She
Mm.
wanted to do we're like, "Hey, lady, can you
Slow
just
down.
slow down because you're making other royals
Right.
look bad." But also it's this bigger idea, I think, that the monarchy is the only way to do effective things like charity, which I think can be debated as well, as if having Archwell and having autonomy over what they can choose to do and to focus on doesn't give them more of an opportunity to do actual good, to make actual change.
And, to that point, he says Meghan and Harry could have carved out a special role, especially in the Commonwealth, which is what the Queen Elizabeth intended. I've never heard
Okay,
anything
I
about
was gonna
that,
ask you
first of
that. I
all.
have never heard that.
I feel like that's more of a public feedback idea where after Megxit, for lack of a better term, happened, people lamented the fact that Harry and Meghan would have been assets to diplomatic relations across the Commonwealth. That's kind of where that idea comes from, I think. And Meghan and Harry could have carved out a special role in the Commonwealth. The last time they went on a faux royal tour, we just heard all this crap about how they shouldn't pretend to be royals and who do they think they are. And this is not worth the price of salt for this trip. It's the goalposts continually change when it comes to Harry and Meghan. And that is, I think, the biggest gripe that I have with this type of reporting. It doesn't matter what they do. There will always be someone to sit here and naysay about it. So, I don't want to don't want to give this article too much credit for being, original in its ideas, because they do then turn to a Daily Mail tactic which they love, quoting tweets. And in this
Which
case, screenshotting tweets.
drives me nuts because it's so easy to go in and search and type like negative stories about or tweets about Megan's Netflix show and act like it's a representative
Mhm.
sample of everyone.
Mhm.
Because you could easily go on and search and find and write an article that's the backlash against Meghan Markle's show has led a lot of TikTokers to come out and support and say they're actually going to watch the show because this is ridiculous. We're not doing this again to Meghan. Like I've seen that too.
Right. Oh my
This is
gosh.
not reporting.
No. It's wild. And you can just tell if you know what the talking points are for anti-Sussex accounts right now, that that's how this is being written. As the comments have been turned off on her Instagram post, that was the subject of another Daily Mail article. How dare she turn off the comments, not even recognizing that they are the ones perpetuating a lot of the abuse that gets put in her comments, but whatever. Fans took to X to share their hesitation about the upcoming Netflix series. No thanks, one user put rather bluntly. Another wrote on the social media platform, "Oh God, this looks terrible." So notice they say user, right? Further down, to the Daily Mail's credit, they do include positive
Well,
tweets.
yes, they do. I see. I haven't read this through. Yes, they do. I mean, you got to scroll real far down. At this part,
Yes,
you're not.
the video ads have already slowed down your computer.
Also,
Like, you
some of these
can't.
accounts too. I mean, I'm not on
Are you
Twitter a lot,
recognizing some of them?
but oh yeah, I'm like, oh, I've definitely blocked some
Yes.
of these. I mean,
Uh-huh.
these are just like really yeah.
And so I want to wrap this up, but they say the one thing I noticed, they're talking about ex users when they talk about these disgruntled, whiny tweets. Later on, when it's positive accounts, which are positive tweets, reactions, I have seen Sussex fans added,
Yep.
super fans said.
Mhm.
And it's talk about bearing the lead. It's leading the witness, it's
Yes.
so, for us, transparent, but media literacy being where it is in this country and in the UK, especially right now, this is what is swaying people's opinions of this show before it has even aired. It comes out on January 15th. We haven't seen it yet. Nobody has seen it yet. And we already have critics slamming this show for being superficial, boring, not what we need, etc., etc. We will get more into that on the Patreon today. If you haven't yet checked out the Patreon, that is where a lot of our more in-depth thought exercises, I think, about the Sussexes are going to live. The tiers begin at $3 a month. You can go over there to support us. And yeah, this show, I mean, are you going to be watching it, Meredith, on
You
January
know what?
15th?
Honestly, I might tune in. I don't think I'm going to be enraptured. I think it's one of those shows you can have on while you're doing things.
Mm,
As someone who got into flower, like, just making arrangements just after my grandfather passed because it gave
right.
me something to do with my hands,
Mm,
I'll take some tips and tricks. I'll take something that looks beautiful. I also like infusing nonsense in my days. I have these impractical anthropology coupe glasses that I will use to drink sparkling water. And you know
That's
what?
so out of touch of you,
They are
Meredith.
impractical as hell, but they are beautiful and they make me happy. And it's a little thing I can do during my day. I I don't see the problem with it. I'll check out an episode at least.
You're saying that taking time and putting care into these little touches improves your mood?
Yeah, it almost brings joy.
Then I feel like every member of the British media who is going to be watching this series to be panning it in reviews maybe could take some of these tips and improve their quality of life. I have to note, I saw a TikTok yesterday where the woman, she's just sitting in her car and she says to the camera, I have never like had hate comments from someone that I would want to switch places with. And I felt like that was very applicable today because
You know what?
all of these
That's
critics.
good to remember.
Yep.
Honestly, for anyone that does anything publicly. That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. So all of these critics talking about Netflix, Meghan series, let's set them to the side for now. And I want to give you the facts. What is going on with Meghan Markle's new series, which is set to premiere in just a couple of days. So this is With Love Meghan, which was announced on Meghan's newly launched Instagram. I was floored that there was just an Instagram account, first of all.
I was whoa. Well, and once I saw I saw her write the 2025, I said, "Oh, we got something to promote and we got something that we want to get out there pretty quickly.
Yes.
Something else is coming, so that whatever the Instagram's being started up again for, there's a first video to kind of gain excitement, gain traction so that the next post performs even better on
Sure.
Instagram."
In a way, I wished that there would have been a little bit more seeding of this account, laying the groundwork, maybe with some personal touches, because it is slightly veering into the territory of an influencer only surfacing when they have something to sell to us. Do you remember Jaclyn Hill? That was kind of a critique of her over the years.
Yes.
That's kind of what I thought, like, as the cynical view. But at the same time, it makes sense not to want to put yourself out there to get lambasted more for no payoff. So, Meghan, you do you.
You do you, girl. And
Yeah.
we'll have more of that conversation over on
Yes.
our Patreon. Is there anything else table setting wise about this that you want to?
I just want to note the reports that went to the media about this show did have a little bit more information. It is 8 episodes, which with each installment running 33 minutes. And there is a whole roster of friends who are going to appear. So we have Mindy Kaling is probably the most famous of her friends. You also have former Suits star Abigail Spencer, Delphina Blacquier, I think that's how you say it, the wife of Polo star Nacho, who I think we need to do an episode on Nacho because he's been red pilled, I believe. And he's a very close friend of Prince Harry. They call each other brothers. So I want to file that away. I'm going to write it down.
Oh, yes. We get our best ideas while talking on this podcast.
Yeah, I just wrote a note that says Nacho. Yeah, so lots of not necessarily high profile faces, but names that will pool a very niche, I think very intentional audience. You have the co-founder of the new Godmother's bookstore, Jennifer Rudolph Walsh, the co-founder of Tatcha, or the founder of Tatcha.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so lots of names who are going to hit particularly hard for demographics that already know and love Meghan. And this is another area where if you kind of don't understand the point of this show, it might not be for you. With a lot of Meghan's projects and a lot of Harry's projects, if you're not already fans of them, I don't know how many people are going to be won over by their Netflix series. And I think this is where we're going to turn it over to Patreon because that is a conversation which is a little controversial, but I want to wrap up just by saying Meghan Markle has always been a lifestyle guru, right? This kind of intentional creation of vibes has always been. No, it's always been part of her identity. There was a post today on social media from somebody who worked with her at a restaurant before she even broke into Hollywood. And he said, Meghan always loved to write the chalkboard signs in her calligraphy. This is
not surprise me.
No, it's always been part of her identity. So I'm very excited to see this series. I might save it for sunny weather so I can stay cozy for a couple months, but I will be watching.
Oh, yeah.
Moving on to, I think, our main story, the one that I pitched to Meredith back in December. It's a story about a monarchy that doesn't really exist. So intriguing, I'm sure you are all thinking.
I'm always confused by this, by the way. So I didn't do any research going into this.
Perfect.
I'm going in just absolutely fresh because I don't understand this. and I'm excited to learn.
So I saw this article from The Guardian in December, and when there's a Guardian article, you know it's going to be a good story. Greece's former royal family seeks to regain citizenship 50 years after end of monarchy. Now, the Greek royal family, such that it is, has been in the news in the past few years because their patriarch, King Constantine II, did pass away in 2023. Prince William famously skipped his memorial service at Windsor Castle last year. So, they've been in the news. And I think that is maybe playing a role in this effort that is now being made for them to return to Greece. So, the people we know as the Greek royal family, they're not really Greek, they're not really royal, but they call themselves the Greek royals.
I'm gonna need
You're
an
going to need a little
explainer
bit
on
more
that
than that.
one.
Yeah. So let's just say Greece has had an on again, off again relationship with its monarchy, the concept of monarchy in general, because there have been several different governments set up. This all kind of kicks off in the 1820s when the Greek War of Independence is over. So we're going to take it back there, but just to set the scene where we are today, the Greek royals have been exiled for the last 50 years, essentially. They have been kicked out of the country. They are not in power. They hold no political sway in Greece. They're what we call pretenders. They once held the title. They still call themselves royal. They still go by the titles. They still get invited to things like King Charles's coronation.
Why do you
They
think that happens? Or do you know why that happens?
It's kind of an old world thing. I would say it's like a very sexy traditional monarchy tradition where if you held this title and you were deposed, if you run in these high profile circles, people are still going to call you that title because they think you were shafted and they think you deserved better. That's
That makes
kind of
sense.
what it is. Yeah. So I'm going to take it back. Meredith does not know this story. I'm going to go through some research I dug up on the Greek monarchy, give you a little scene setting, because I think this year is going to have the Greek royals in the news quite a bit. So 1829, Greece wins its independence from the Ottoman Empire. So this is the decade where like a modern Greece starts. We don't have to go back to antiquity, like don't worry. They had their first national assembly and constitution in 1822. But by 1832, the first Greek republic is abolished. There's infighting. They aren't really happy with where they've landed, and an international conference is convened to chart out a stable path forward. Now, this is undertaken on Greece's behalf, which is important.
Great.
Yes, this is called the London Conference, famously
Okay.
a great town to hold conferences in.
Fabulous.
So, 2 years before the London Conference, three great powers, so called, France, Britain, and Russia, took it upon themselves to assign the borders of the modern Greek state. Yeah.
What could be the problem in
What
that?
could go wrong? The governor of Greece, the first one to kind of occupy these borders, has been assassinated. The Greek peninsula is plunged back into chaos. So the three great powers come together again to decide how this state will govern itself going forward, basically. So they settle on turning Greece into a kingdom that would be ruled. Are you ready?
Yes.
By a German or Bavarian prince. That is who they think, just in general, would do the best job.
And
They
let me tell you something. Germany
famously good at running
is gonna
countries.
be great in the
Mhm,
early
mhm.
1900s. Just
Yeah,
really
in the
a
Mediterranean.
pinnacle
Mhm.
a pinnacle for,
Yeah.
fair leadership.
And you know who thought that? Not the Greeks. No Greeks were consulted during the London Conference. So the Brits, the Russians, and the French offer the Greek crown to, first, Prince Leopold of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, who is uncle to Queen
Oh,
Victoria.
yeah, yep.
He
Remember
declines
that
and
one.
later becomes the King of the Belgians.
Well, do you
Another
wanna explain the name thing with the Windsors? Because
Hmm,
Windsor was not the name, it was
right.
changed to make them sound more English during a time when there was
Yes.
a lot of anti-German sentiment.
Yeah, so this is a time where the British monarchy is just German. The Georgians coming in the early 1700s literally were imported from Germany. Queen Victoria takes it back to the German roots in the 1800s when she marries Prince Albert, who is a German prince, also her first cousin. That's another issue entirely. So the family name at this time is Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. They're German. So the Greek crown is offered to Queen Victoria's uncle. He declines, and instead, a German prince named Otto gets the call. Do you want to become king of Greece? He says yes.
Why
They,
not?
of course, they
Is
establish a
there a
new.
test?
Haha, we'll get there. Um,
Oh god.
a new line of succession is established with Otto's descendants. And it's also decided that in no case would the crowns of Greece and Bavaria ever be joined in a personal union. So Greece is set aside as its own thing, which is helpful. King Otto is deposed after 30 years. So again, going back and forth quite a bit. We could go through every single monarch, but just know that this happens time and time again.
I'm shocked.
Yeah. Referendums keep being held. Princes keep getting exiled from Greece and then brought back. And it's just a huge back and forth. The next head of state referendum in Greece is held in 1862. The Greek people do get to vote. They choose Prince Alfred, Duke of Edinburgh, who is a son of Queen Victoria. He wins, but declines to become king.
So he probably should have been king then.
Right.
The guy that's like, no, you know what? I don't know if I should be king.
Probably, yeah. Every candidate after him, they go through, like, down the line of people who receive the most votes. Every single one of them says, no, it's not for me, until the one that they settle on, Prince Wilhelm of Denmark, of the House of Glucksburg, received only 6 votes in the referendum.
Good. Good.
So
no,
he
good.
he becomes like the first Greek king who the line kind of descends from.
Okay.
He is known as His Majesty George I. He changes his name and he becomes king of the Hellenes. So this is why you will hear the Greek royals. Prince Philip is the most famous example. They will sometimes be called Prince or Princess of Greece and Denmark. And that is because this guy, Prince Wilhelm, was a prince of Denmark. So ever since him, the Greek royals can trace their line back to the male royal house in Denmark. So that's kind of where we get set up for the 20th century, right? Like I said, there are a lot of back and forths between we want a king, we don't want a king. We kick him out, we bring him back until you get to, let's see, pretty much World War I. Again, the Danish principalities and Russia are also very intertwined. So you have some Romanovs marrying in.
You got to have it. No, what's interesting?
Yeah.
I see in your notes that we talk about George, whose son Constantine was the first Greek-born member of the royal family. His mother, Olga Constantinova. Which is funny because my last name, actually, my original last name is not Constant. It was shortened when we came in. It wasn't Konstantinova. I'm Ukrainian. It was Konstantinovsky. But
wow.
I was like, Konstantinova. Yeah. That's close.
I'm imagining it's probably very common because of Constantinople.
That's what I think. And although ours was with a K, so it was a little different. But I saw that and I was like,
a little bit
family?
Close to the source material.
Oh, no, never mind. It's
maybe you should look into it. If you have Russian, Danish, Greek, what else?
What if I'm a
Turkish?
What if I'm Anastasia?
You could be a royal. So yes, George I gives birth to the first native-born Greek who becomes king, Constantine I. He is around when the first modern Olympic Games are established in Athens. Then we get to World War I, where Greece is in a weird situation because they have German ancestry. They are German, right? They are very pro-German privately. They typically adopt a neutral standpoint publicly. This becomes an issue when, Germany invades Greece and occupies it during World War II, but we're not there yet.
Having trouble. What a sad story. Sorry, it was the producers. Sorry.
You got it. So again, there are coups. Sons are deposed and exiled with their fathers. Then the sons brought back in to reestablish the Greek monarchy, blah, blah, blah. We get to, the German invasion in World War II. The Greek king at this time is forced into his 3rd exile of his life. He remains internationally recognized outside of Greece as the king, and he is reestablished kind of as the head of the royal family. Monarchy is brought back into Greece through a rigged referendum in 1946, which will also become a theme. Mm-hmm. Democracy is brought back. Monarchy is brought back. Paul is the next king. I believe he's Paul I of Greece. So he's kind of where the current royal family pretty much starts. He had also lived in exile, so he understands the tumultuous relationship that Greece has with the royal family. He is, at this point, the least culturally Greek of the royals. He is married to a German princess who he met at the 1936 Olympic Games in Berlin. Her name is Frederica of Hanover. The marriage to a German princess is very unpopular in Greece. Adolf Hitler suggested that they include Nazi swastika flags at their wedding.
How charming. Listen, it
Yes.
doesn't really go with the decor,
The
red's
color
not really our
scheme,
color, it's gonna
no.
clash. Sorry, great suggestion though, Adolf, like,
No.
thanks. Do you want chick Oh, you're a vegetarian. Okay, no, we'll help you out. Okay. Sorry.
Can't come back from that. I can't
Nope,
follow it.
nope.
The Greek people see this happening and they're like, we're not really about that. So Frederica and Paul, to their credit, do kind of dumb down the Germanness of their family life. They speak English to their children, who include the future Constantine II. They they do go to Austria on a skiing holiday every winter, and they entertain Frederica's German family members at the estate in Greece. The family estate, it does come up later in the current drama. The Greek family owns a private estate at this time called Tatoi, Tatoi. I could be pronouncing it wrong. It's right outside of Athens. It is privately owned at this time. And this is where the Greek royals, they raise their
Big is
family.
it like, how big is this estate?
This estate is 10,000 acres, Meredith.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay, so they, I'm presuming, claimed or took a large swath of
They did
l land?
purchase it.
Okay, purchase. Okay,
Purchase.
okay,
But
okay.
remember, they're Germans, so they, came into the country and purchased it from, I'm assuming, native Greek. Yeah. So this family, they are in power at the end of the Greek Civil War. Paul, as a king, is pretty weak. He contracts typhoid fever, and he can't really be effective in ruling. After the Civil War wraps up in 1949, the Greek monarchy is on an upward trajectory. There is political and financial stability. Paul and Frederica make official state visits around the world. They go to Turkey to ease Greco and Turkish relations. They go to the UK in 1952, where Paul walks behind the coffin of King George VI during his state funeral. So this monarchy, for all of its tumultuous history, is on equal footing with the other
That
monarchies of the
and
world.
King George the Sixth is Queen Elizabeth's father.
Right. Correct. Yep. So Paul continues to make British state visits in the reign of Queen Elizabeth. He visits in 1963. He also goes to the US, France, West Germany, Switzerland, Ethiopia, Italy, India, and Thailand. So they're promoting the Greek peninsula. They are developing tourism. They invite all the ruling and former ruling European royal families to a cruise between the Greek islands in 1954.
Yes!
This is called the Cruise of the Kings. Very popular move, I will say.
It sounds like a Royal Caribbean, it's like
Literally.
a new ship, the Cruise of the
The Cruise of
Kings.
the Kings. It was on this cruise that Paul and Frederica's eldest daughter, Princess Sophia, meets one Prince Juan Carlos of Spain, who was then the heir to the Spanish throne. Sophia and Juan Carlos get married in 1962, and they have a son who is the current King Felipe of Spain.
Oh,
Yes.
fancy that.
Yes. So Sophia was a Greek princess who became the Queen of Spain. It doesn't stop there. It gets a little crazy as we go on. So
Good.
so the political stability, it's going great. In 1952, there is a new Greek constitution that grants extensive powers to the king. It's said to grant Paul more power than the other European monarchs have at this time, and he is accused of authoritarianism. The cost of the monarchy also begins to be questioned, family, personal use of public funds, that kind of thing. One particular man becomes the leader of the opposition, Georgios Papandreou, I think is how you say it. He becomes one of the Greek monarchy's greatest critics. He even makes the phrase, "the king reigns but does not govern," his motto. So, stand-up guy. I'm a
Not
fan.
bad.
No, not terrible. He said it in a speech and then he made it his slogan.
Yeah, you gotta have a catchphrase.
At this time, as an example of one of the things that the monarchy is being critiqued over, the British still rule on the island of Cyprus, which is a Greek inhabited island. There are tensions between the British and the Greeks, which is why in 1963 there is a state visit to London. Frederica is invited to attend the wedding of Princess Alexandra of Kent to Angus Ogilvy. She is told not to go by the Greek prime minister. She does go. It causes this whole thing. There are protests that turn violent outside of her hotel. And the opposition uses this as an opportunity to claim that in Greece, you don't see these kind of protests because the monarchy is restricting freedom of speech.
Okay.
You can see him in London, but not here. Isn't that interesting? So stop me if I'm getting too in the weeds, by the way.
No, I here's the problem. I live for this stuff.
And
So
it's
I'm like,
useful. I
please
think
tell
it
me
is
more. I
useful.
think it's so important. And
Yeah.
I'm also just thinking here about the way that we've seen some crackdown on protest
Mhm.
in of the monarchy, even in London and stuff, and even some of these. Shouldn't you be grateful
And
that
this
you are
isn't
allowed
that
to
long ago.
protest?
This
It's
is
not.
70 years ago. So Paul and Frederica, they do have a son. Their only son. They have a couple daughters. Their only son is named Constantine. In 1958, he turns 18 and commences his royal duties. He has been, to Paul's credit, carefully brought up to not repeat the same mistakes as previous Greek monarchs. He learns Greek as well as English. He goes to school inside Greece, which is notable. His sisters are sent, I think, to Switzerland to boarding school, but he is educated right near Athens.
That was smart.
Yeah, and he serves in all three branches of the Greek armed forces, which is a very common move in modern monarchy. Get your heir to the throne in the military so that they can have literally boots on the ground. Paul dies in 1964. He is 62 years old. King Constantine II comes to the throne. He will be the last Greek king as head of state. When Paul is buried, it is on the family estate in the Tatoi Gardens with the other deceased members of the Greek royal family. And I just needed to note that because, again, it becomes relevant.
Well, I know you wrote, there's a reason you put that in there. I know we're going to get to that.
Yeah. So Constantine II, he marries another name that might be familiar because of recent news, Anne Marie of Denmark. She is his third cousin because remember, the Greek royals are the Danish royals. She becomes queen, when they get married. They get married the same year he becomes king, and they go on to have 5 children together. Now, just a reminder, because of where we are, the Denmark of it all. Princess Anne Marie is a Danish princess. So it's like a full circle moment where we are reconnecting the Greek and the Danish of it all.
We're back.
We are back. We are so back. Anne Marie is actually Queen Margrethe of Denmark's sister. She's placing it.
Okay.
So this is like a really good example of how old world monarchy operated, which we don't see anymore with commoners being allowed to join the fold, right? Sisters of monarchs are being married to other monarchs. That happens quite frequently in this version of the world.
Yeah. I'm here for it. Well, even on Elizabeth marrying Philip,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and so Philip, I don't have the family tree down super well, but he is a prince of Greece and Denmark.
I was about to say, I feel like
his mother was like a Greek princess.
Yes.
But they were descended from Danish royalty. Yeah.
It really is a small world.
It really is, especially monarchy. Yeah. So the Greeks, they are optimistic about Constantine II's reign. Political instability is ramping up in the background. So that leader of the opposition.
Where are we in the late 60s?
We're in 63,
okay,
65.
So we're not just we're dealing with the communist threat, which is and
which will come in here.
There's the Vietnam War. There's a lot of imperial, not just the threat of kind of these imperial powers taking over and trying to insert their own rule or the kind of government that they want to see in other parts of the world, but also communism. People are really scared of communism and the Soviet Union. And David Hasselhoff has not yet brought down the wall.
Stop. No, but literally, yeah. So at this point, the leader of the opposition becomes prime minister in Greece, Papandreou, I think. I'm going to say it differently every time. I'm so sorry. He resigns in July 1965 after struggles to reform the government. Constantine kind of wins that conflict between the two of them, with them butting heads. An agreement is reached in which the government and King Constantine both agree to hold direct elections, which will not affect the hierarchy of the armed forces. So there's that anxiety over potential coups, military coups, communist. That is playing out in Greece, like very openly. So just weeks before these new free, fair elections are scheduled to take place, in April 1967, a right-wing military dictatorship stages a coup in Greece. High-ranking politicians and the commander-in-chief of the army are arrested, and King Constantine II is apprehended at his residence, his private family residence. It escalates quickly.
I'm here. No, I'm here.
Okay. I can't tell if you're reacting.
No, I am here. I am just enraptured with the story. Tell me more.
So Constantine's private family residence is surrounded by tanks, but it is a bloodless coup. At this point, he is kind of resigned to the fact that he's cornered. He is asked to swear in the new military government, which he does because he wants it to remain a bloodless coup. He does not want any blood to be shed. So on the outside, he is very acquiescent. He says in a speech, kind of establishing the new government, I am sure that with the will of God, with your efforts, and above all with the help of the people, meaning the Greek people, the organization of a state of law and authentic and healthy democracy. Privately, Constantine is very angry at the situation, as I think you would be. He reveals to the US ambassador to Greece that he no longer has any control of the army. He is still a figurehead king, but he says that the, quote, incredibly stupid, extreme right-wing bastards with control of the tanks are leading Greece to destruction. Not great. The administration of US President Lyndon B. Johnson kind of helps Constantine hatch a new plan for a counter coup, but they do stop short of sending him any aid, ammunition, etc. So this counter coup is unsuccessful in 1967.
Which is kind of, again, considering Vietnam and everything, it's not super surprising, and also, again, our fair share of getting involved in coups in other countries and it not going well. And just for reference, Lyndon B. Johnson was the vice president for JFK. And then he becomes a president. After that, I just would like to point out that Lady Bird Johnson and I share a birthday.
I love
she's
her.
My favorite first lady.
She's so good.
She's the best. Lady Bird Johnson. Look her up.
Shout out.
Episode on Lady Bird Johnson.
Beautification. All right. So this coup fails and the Greek government is pissed at the royal family. They establish a regency, which means they put a figurehead in to actually do the day-to-day work. The royal family is exiled. They take off in torrential rain. They are headed to Rome, where they arrive on December 14th, 1967. Despite his exile, Constantine kind of is formally still head of state. He just has a proxy in Greece until 1973. And he still appears on coinage during that time, but the royal coat of arms is replaced by the symbol of the government, which was a phoenix. In 2004, later on, Constantine went on the record saying he would have done everything the same, but with more caution. He remained in exile in Italy throughout the rest of military rule until June 1973, when another failed counter coup was linked to him. So there is no evidence. It's a real like Mary Queen of Scots moment where this plan was hatched and set into motion, but the fingers were pointed at the king when it wasn't really his plan.
So were they kind of pointed because was one of the goals to be able to get rid of him once and for all? Is that kind of what you think might have happened?
I think so. And like the goal of the coup was probably to bring Constantine back, because that's what had happened every time in Greek history up to this point. Whenever there was an exile, the king was brought back in after the government fell or whatever. So the military government declares the monarchy to be abolished in 1973. There is a referendum which backs this up in July. This is what I'm talking about, on again, off again. The military government itself is overthrown in 1974. So
that didn't last long.
Nope. Constantine at this time expects an invitation to return as king, because that's always been done for his grandfather, his great-grandfather. That's always been the case. Another referendum is held under the new, we're no longer under military rule, so let's have a free and fair referendum. December 8th, 1974, once again, the question is asked, will Greece restore the monarchy or will we remain a republic? This referendum is rigged from the standpoint of there is no ability of Constantine or the royalists to really lobby. He cannot return to Greece. He is not allowed back to campaign for the return to the monarchy. He's only allowed to broadcast from London on television.
That makes it a little hard.
It does. And analysts now, looking back, say that this was a deliberate act by the government to reduce the possibility of a vote in favor of restoration. Speaking from London, the king said he had made mistakes in the past, but that he would always be supportive of democracy in the future. He promised that his German mother, who was also a queen of Greece, would stay away from the country. That was still a big anxiety, the German influence on the Greek people.
That woman
cannot come back.
No, she's going to stay in Rome.
Yeah. So the vote happens. Interestingly, the vote to restore the monarchy is at about 31%. So almost 69% of the electorate vetoed the possibility of restoring the monarchy and instead chose to establish a Greek republic. Constantine relocates permanently to London. He and his family live in exile there in the Hampstead Gardens suburb, where they have close ties to the British royal family, who, remember, are their relatives, Prince Philip. This is why in 2024 there was a memorial held for Constantine in Windsor, because he was so closely linked to the British royals. He's very close to Charles. He is Prince William's godfather. He lived in London, you know? I love this. The Greek government does not allow him to come back to Greece until the 1980s. They give him 6 hours in the country for his mother's funeral.
Snap.
His mother
That's
dies.
cold.
They say, okay, clock's a ticking. You can come back for 6 hours. In 1993, Constantine does strike a deal with the new prime minister to allow him and his family to come to Greece on holiday. There could be a whole episode on just this vacation because
We might have to. This is our Christmas vacation. We'll have to do like a
it's
Chevy Chase type
wild.
thing.
None of Constantine's children had spent any time in Greece. You know, they were deposed in the 70s, 60s, 70s. So they used this time to showcase the country to their children on a yacht vacation, which is so Greek. Constantine also loves sailing. I think he won a gold medal for Greece in the Olympics. He was on the International Olympic Committee even after being deposed. He was particularly interested in showing Greece to his 2 eldest sons, Crown Prince Pavlos and Prince Nikolaos. So Crown Prince Pavlos is the person currently at the head of the family because Constantine has passed away. He has a great mustache. Oh my God, it's so good.
So is he technically king or is he still considered a prince?
So that's the thing. Because this is a family now of pretenders, right? These are people who are pretending to these titles. The titles... It is. I was going to say no relation. The titles no longer exist in the context of the Greek government, right? They don't recognize this monarchy. But the family did once inherit these titles. So there is, you know, depending on your worldview.
Grandfathered in?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
They do give their children prince and princess titles anyway, but like, whatever. That's their choice to call themselves, you know. There would have been a bigger fuss, I think, if Pavlos had called himself king. So he settled on crown prince.
Probably a good idea.
Probably.
But I love the people that are like so annoyed that Archie and Lilibet.
Right.
But
like why do you care?
I mean, look at the great. They're just finders keepers.
Yeah.
And they abolished that monarchy. So.
Right. And so that brings us to kind of what the family wants now, right? Pavlos is the head of the family. He has a wife, he has children. His mother, Queen Anne-Marie, is still alive. She still uses the queen title, even though Constantine has passed away. She hasn't been queen since 1974.
I love that for her. I do that too. It's like Countess Luann on Real Housewives. She hasn't been Countess for a hot minute, but yeah, you're going to call her the Countess.
Right.
It's great branding.
The main gripe is the family's property, that 10,000-acre estate, Tatoi. In 1992, King Constantine, I think, was it during his mom's funeral? No.
Yeah, that's a lot to get done in 6 hours.
No, it was probably when he was on vacation. He had everything removed that he could, like everything he could have carried out of the house, he took. He later relinquished it back to the government in return for recovering ownership of the house itself. So at the time, the government made a trade. They said, hey, if you give us all the stuff, we'll give you the property. 2 years later, the new Greek government reneges on that agreement in a bill legislated in 1994. The prime minister, Papandreou, not only re-seized the property, said, actually, we're taking that back. He also, at this time, stripped all members of the family of their Greek citizenship. So when they were exiled, that had not been done. They were just kind of sent on their way. The only way that they could regain their citizenship, there was a path forward. They had to swear allegiance to the new Republican Constitution and renounce all of their rights as heirs to the former Greek throne. Constantine refused to do this, which is why they are considered pretenders. They're not going to be allowed back on the throne, but they never relinquished their right to it. So if it does hypothetically ever come back, there is still a mechanism in place where they could, you know, get that crown back. The same year, Constantine again requests the return of the palace, the family property, arguing that it is rightfully his. His ancestors had personally purchased it, which is true. However, the government refuses. The family then takes the Greek government to court in April 1996, which is still kind of impacting where we are today. And the issues are the confiscation of their citizenship, their passports, and their property. The Supreme Civil and Criminal Court of Greece agreed with the claim of discrimination that they lodged because of the way that they were barred from citizenship. But the Council of State overrode that decision and stated that the removal of the Greek family's passports was a measure taken to conform with the Constitution of the Third Republic. So as a result, Constantine takes Greece to court in the European Court of Human Rights.
Oh,
He
there we go.
sues them for 200 million euros. So the insult here to Constantine, he is the king of Greece at a certain point in time. He says, I consider it the greatest insult in this world for a Greek to be told he is not a Greek. I would just like to point out, he's not Greek.
Yep. Yeah.
He's German and Danish.
Listen, apples and oranges.
It is the greatest insult for me to say that, or for a Greek to be told that he has to apply for his nationality. I was born Greek, I am Greek, and I will die Greek. And there are certain things that every human being will not go further with. You cannot push an individual further, and this is my limit. So very strong words, very clearly tells you where the family kind of falls on this issue. The Human Rights Court does rule in the royal family's favor in 2000, but does not require the government to return any property. The ruling allows the family to be compensated monetarily. Remember, he sued for 200 million euros. Constantine wins 12 million euros.
Well, it feels like he really would have effed the entire Greek government.
Yeah.
Which also, if you're looking to come back and be the head of the system, it seems weird to totally potentially screw over. And plus, as we know, Greece ends up having some real financial issues.
Yeah.
So,
and he does say when he's asked around this time, are you trying to become king again? He says no, like it's just about to him his birthright. Some of the family members win smaller amounts, like I think his sister gets 800,000 euros or something. The court also encourages 6 months of meetings between Constantine II and the Greek government to coordinate a further settlement. But the Greek government,
couples counselors,
literally, the Greek government refuses. They are the husband that does not think they need this therapy.
They don't need therapy.
And since it's human rights, we don't have to do that. It's fine. So Constantine and his family never get their citizenship back. They also refused to adopt a surname, which is something that they felt they didn't have to do because they are the royal family. The 1994 law that strips them of their citizenship assigned one for them. They gave them, it's the ultimate slap in the face. They gave them the Danish name Glucksberg, which is their Danish dynasty name, going back to the Prince of Denmark.
Snap.
Yeah.
Snap.
The family has never really used that name. They distance themselves from it as much as possible. They see it as linking them too closely to their German ancestry and makes them seem less, quote, legitimately Greek.
That is petty. That is petty mayonnaise. It's
very
good.
It really is. So Queen Anne-Marie, she did request her sister, Queen Margrethe of Denmark, to establish Danish diplomatic passports in the names of the members of the Greek royal family, which Margrethe does. She agrees to it. In their Danish passports, the name Glucksberg does not appear. Instead, they are HM King Constantine II and HM Queen Anne-Marie. So this is where they kind of are a little big for their britches. They still call themselves the king and queen, even after they have been literally kicked out of the country and stripped of their citizenship. Yeah. So the question of a surname kind of becomes an issue here going forward. The court decision ruled that Constantine's human rights were not violated by the Greek state's decision not to grant him Greek citizenship and a passport, because they said if he adopts a surname, it's fine. He can have, his citizenship back. Constantine said of this, the law basically said that I had to go out and acquire a name. The problem is that my family originates from Denmark and the Danish royal family haven't got a surname. Just make note of that really quick.
Okay.
So Constantine lives in exile until 2013. He is allowed to return to Greece then. He dies of a stroke in 2023. The Greek government decides he is not able to receive a state funeral. He does have a funeral in Athens at the Metropolitan Cathedral with 10 current and former European monarchs in attendance. So it's a state funeral, but it doesn't have the government backing,
Okay, yep.
There's also that service of Thanksgiving in Windsor the following year, which brings us to 2025. Finally.
We're here.
So even after the king's death, the surviving wife and family, they go by their titles. Constantine and Anne-Marie's 5 children, Alexia, Pavlos, Nikolaos, Theodora, and Philippos, and 9 grandchildren, they do continue to represent the defunct Greek monarchy at events. So they were at the coronation, the funeral of Queen Elizabeth, etc. As the first son, Pavlos is the father's heir. He holds the symbolic title of crown prince. He is kind of leading the charge now to regain the Greek royal family's citizenship. In December 2024, relatives of the late king signed a declaration acknowledging the Republican government. So they took that step that was outlined in the 1994 court case, which presumably I think means they renounced their claims to the throne. They also adopted a new surname. It's a little
Okay.
funny.
Go into
They
it.
self-selected the name de Grèce, which is
No.
French for of Greece.
Stop it.
Yeah.
That's honestly, that's good. That's good.
Checkmate. So
That's good.
this is the first step, as outlined in that dispute from 1994, to regaining Greek citizenship. And I understand that they have like applied for it now. That was like the first outward step.
Amazing.
The choice of name is pissing people off in the Greek government.
Yes.
Legislators come out against this. It's so funny. From center left and left wing opposition parties, namely, they say the family shouldn't have been permitted to choose their own surname, but they do not oppose the right to citizenship. So they really are just hanging on the issue of name. Some argue that it sounds like a title rather than a standard surname.
It does.
Yeah, you should have been more careful when you litigated that. The Socialist Party says when they say that they are giving up their titles and any future claims to the throne by opting for this family name, they create confusion. So I think that's more what it is. It's the optics. The Greek government doesn't want to seem like they got outplayed by this defunct royal family.
No, it feels bad.
Yeah, it feels icky. So officials reporting on this have not given us the names of the people applying for citizenship. Greek news media widely reports that it is 10 total family members, including all 5 children of Constantine II, as well as 5 of the grandchildren. So the next step, the decision on citizenship, must be published in the official government gazette before the family can apply for state identity cards and Greek passports. Unless there's a legal issue that can be found to the surname, I think that's going to happen. An Interior Ministry official told Greek state-run radio, a historically pending matter is being resolved. Let's look to the future. I think it's a good moment because it closes an account from the past and we can now look forward as a people. So I think this is going to happen this year. That's one of my 2025 predictions. You know, the Greek royals return. Maybe they get their property back. Maybe they don't. Does it mean that the Greek monarchy is going to be reestablished? Absolutely not. I think for all intents and purposes, they have renounced any claims. They will continue to use the titles because that's their prerogative.
Yeah, because at a certain point, even with Constantine, was there a certain point where he wanted to, again, be head of government? Or was there, I mean, I wonder if there was ever a world where it's like, well, maybe we do it kind of like the British do. Obviously, a different form of government, but you know what I mean? Where you're ceremonial, but then, of course, then you're paying for them. And that's my question. So how are these people sustaining their lifestyle? I mean, presumably they have inheritance, but also how, like, what are they doing what are they doing?
What are they doing? There is, the generational wealth thing.
Because presumably you got to start making money. You're not being supported by the state.
Well, they were kind of supported by Queen Anne-Marie's sister, Queen Margrethe of Denmark.
Okay,
So that
okay.
I think we need to note. Prince Pavlos did marry a woman named Marie Chantal, who was born in London to a British businessman and his wife, who is Ecuadorian. Her sister is married to a Getty. These people run in high society.
Okay, yeah.
Her younger sister is married to Prince Alexander von Furstenberg. So we're not hurting for cash. It probably is more generational than institutional. Maria Chantal has a line of baby clothes. She wrote a book on etiquette. They are, for lack of a better term, grifting their way to the top.
Listen, Countess Luann wrote an etiquette book too, bringing it back. Aristocracy.
Yeah. Hey, I put it in my gift guide for 2024. I think that would be a really fun present for somebody.
Not?
Right? Yeah.
So I wonder, thinking about in broader terms, we now have an example. It's taken a long time where there's no longer a monarchy and they essentially capitulated, and it sounds like they just want their citizenship and they'll keep using their titles, but they're not looking to reestablish a monarchy or anything like that. Maybe they want their property, but do you think that makes the British royal family feel any sort of way? How does this kind of impact other monarchies?
Well, yeah, I think that's interesting, an interesting lens through which to examine this, because remember, these people were at the coronation. They didn't have to be invited, but they were. So I think that is a signal from the British monarchy and government that, hey, this is awful what happened to you. And we believe in your right to hold these titles and run in these circles. So yeah, I think it is an interesting, albeit dramatic, way for this to unfold in terms of abolishing a monarchy. Luckily for the Brits, all of the referendums, I think, on the Greek monarchy were complete bunk. They were rigged. They were not free and fair elections, except for maybe the last one. But even that is like a strong maybe. Will we see this kind of thing repeated in our lifetime? I don't know. It's not impossible because, again, this was 50 years ago that this all went down. But I think we're all
It's
just
also
hoping it doesn't reach that point again
well,
if we're
yeah, and
British
also just
royals.
thinking in terms of, what was going on politically,
Right.
at that time, and also what's going on politically now. And in Afua Hirsch's book, British, which is a memoir about being Black and British, she talks about how, the basically people on, the side of Brexit and, very, very conservative have sort of co-opted the British royal family into the nationalism, into what it
Right.
means to be British, despite the fact that they aren't British. Just like
They're
the
German. Right.
Greek royal family is not Greek, but it's so interesting the way nationalism and
Yes.
if you look a certain way, well, we can change your last name and we'll make you British, and it's really interesting in a time where there's a lot of identity of what it means to be British or American and who should be in these countries or not. And then some of the figureheads at the top are not really even British themselves.
Right.
It's more of a melting pot,
And
but God forbid.
I think it is important that these shifts happen when a prominent member of the family, a patriarch, passes away, right?
Yeah, good point.
Constantine passes away, and the kind of respect that was given to him, or the, throwing him a bone, okay, fine, you can keep the title, no longer has to perpetuate. That's kind of something we identified when Queen Elizabeth II passed away. How is this going to shift attitudes towards the monarchy? And King Charles, I still think, occupies some of those links to the old world monarchy.
Yes.
He has these ties to other monarchs that he grew up with or that he are his godparents. Queen Margrethe is a great example of an old world monarch as well. Queen Margrethe is a great example of an old world monarch as well. So once these people are out of the picture, I think there will be bigger shifts that we are able to track.
That is going to be fascinating. So you'll have to keep us updated
Yeah,
what happens with this situation. This is
for sure.
wild. I had no idea. This was so fun. I love history lessons with Amanda.
It's a great rabbit hole. If you want bananas, like political machination, like it's got everything if you want to go down the Greek royal family rabbit hole.
It's got everything. No, I love it. That was super fun, and it was fun to talk about something else that
Yes.
wasn't
No, I
that's also
agree.
going on in the
Not
world, and
jam.
looking at how the other monarchies interact with the British monarchy, which
Mm,
tends to be our focus.
yeah.
I loved it. So that was the episode. We hope that you loved it, and if you did, please make sure you subscribe to Off with Their Headlines wherever you get your podcast. Please leave a review, especially on Apple. Those reviews with comments, especially positive ones, really help us reach a bigger audience. We also have our Patreon, and in fact, drum roll please,
So exciting. It's
we
so exciting.
we have our first press secretary level Patreon. We have shout out
Yay.
tiers that we named, and
Thank
we
you
have
for
our
accepting
first.
the position, first of all.
Thank you. And we're gonna pay you a fair wage. We're not listen, this is not gonna be a 30,000
We're
pound a
not going to
year or
ask you to
whatever.
sign an NDA. Like, it's fine. It's chill.
Gonna be great. We're not gonna run you off before you started. So who, pray tell, is our first press secretary?
Molly White, thank you so much for joining the team, becoming our
Yay,
first
Molly!
Patreon press secretary. Um, it's because of support from our community, Molly included, all of you listening included, that we were able to do this and that we had the gumption to make
The
this leap.
gumption. The
Yeah, really.
absolute gall. Thank you, Molly. I promise that we will not try to oust you
Mm.
successfully like Christopher Geit.
Just please,
That
please, no
King
cash for
Charles and
leaks. We can't go
please,
down that road
please no
again.
cash for leaks. Listen, yeah, do you happen to know Dan? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Molly, we
Woo.
love you. We love all of your
Thank you,
support,
thank you,
free
thank
and
you.
paid and everything. It's helping us get this off the ground and, little career over here,
Little
okay?
career
Content
move.
creators. So yeah, and also you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We still have TikTok right now. It's at Meredith Constant. I also have a Substack where I write more about media literacy and other topics that interest me through a media criticism lens. That is Pulling Threads with Meredith Constant, and it's meredithconstant.substack.com. Amanda, where can the people find you?
Again, still on TikTok, hopefully for the foreseeable future, at Matta of Fact. Also on Instagram at Meta of Fact. I too am on Substack. I have some really fun content coming your way over there, ramping back up from the holidays at The Fascinator. That is Meta of Fact, no underscores, .substack.com. And I make another podcast called Art of History, which is also coming back after a holiday hiatus this month. We look at history through the lens of works of art, and it's just a fun time.
It's good. It's good. And this is why when you listen to that, then you really understand your attention to detail and where it
Aw,
all comes from. You know what I mean? Because that's the lens that you learn through.
thanks.
We're both,
I paid a
listen,
lot of money to be able to do that.
I paid a lot of money to be able to do a podcast. My parents are so proud. I'm just kidding. But this is why I'm like, hey, mom, you can listen to this one. Nothing like it's fine. It's good. It's clean. You can share it with your friends.
My mom asks me, is that one on YouTube? And the answer is no, but also yes, because
But
you
also,
can
yes,
get
you can get the
video
videos
episodes.
1 week later. 1 week later,
Mhm.
you get the videos. If you want the videos right as they drop, there's a Patreon tier for that. But listen, we've talked enough. Enjoy, the start of 2025. Enjoy your week or weekend, and we'll catch you next time.
See ya.
Bye.